Nudge, Improving Decisions About Health, Wealth, and Happiness, by Richard H. Thaler and Cass R. Sunstein. Introduction. Have you ever walked into a men's restroom at the Amsterdam airport? Probably not. But if you did, you might notice something peculiar. Etched into the porcelain of each urinal is a small, realistic image of a housefly. It's a strange detail. You might think it's a prank or some quirky European design choice. But it's not. That tiny fly is a work of genius. It turns out, as an economist named Odd Keyboom discovered, that when you give a man a target, he aims. The presence of that little fly reduces spillage by a staggering 80%. No signs, no warnings, no penalties. Just a tiny, silent suggestion baked into the environment. A little nudge. That fly tells us a profound secret about human behavior. A secret that won a Nobel Prize for one of the authors of the book we're exploring today, Richard H. Thaler. Together with his co-author, the brilliant legal scholar Cass R. Sunstein, they wrote a book that quietly changed the world. It's called Nudge. Since its publication, Nudge has sold millions of copies and has been read by presidents, prime ministers, and CEOs. Its ideas have been used to help millions of people save more for retirement, to increase organ donations, to fight poverty, and even to help people eat healthier, all without forcing anyone to do anything. This isn't just another book about psychology. This is a handbook for understanding the hidden architecture of our choices. By the end of our time together, you won't just understand why you sometimes forget your New Year's resolutions, or why you stick with the default settings on your new phone. You'll have the secret of the choice architect ', the ability to see the invisible forces that guide your decisions every single day, and how you can start designing a life where your best intentions finally win out. You'll learn that the most powerful way to change the world, and your own life, isn't through force, but through a gentle, well-placed nudge. Book summary. Let's start with a simple question. Have a look at these two tables. One on the left, one on the right. Which one is longer and narrower? If you're like almost everyone on the planet, you'd say the table on the left looks like a long, thin runway, while the one on the right looks much more like a square coffee table. It seems obvious. But if you were to take out a ruler and measure them, you would discover something shocking. The tops of the two tables are identical. Exactly the same dimensions. Go ahead, pause and look it up if you need to. It's a famous illusion. No matter how many times you see it, your brain screams that the left one is longer. Seeing, in this case, is not believing. This little trick reveals the central character in our story today. This character is you. It's me. It's the person the authors call a human. For centuries, especially in the world of economics, the people in charge of making policies and designing systems believed they were dealing with a completely different creature. They called this creature Homo economicus, or as the authors simplify it, an econ. An econ is a marvel of rationality. An econ can think like Albert Einstein, store as much memory as a supercomputer, and has the willpower of Mahatma Gandhi. An econ always makes the optimal choice for their long-term well-being. They never overeat, they never forget to save for retirement, and they certainly wouldn't be fooled by a simple optical illusion. The problem is, you've never met an econ. And you never will. The people we know, the people we love, the person we see in the mirror. We are humans. We forget our spouse's birthday. We have trouble with long division without a calculator. We eat the whole bowl of cashews before dinner, even though we know it will spoil our appetite. We are, in other words, beautifully, predictably, irrational. And the first step to making better decisions is to understand why. The authors explain that our brain is running two different operating systems, all the time. Think of it as having two minds living inside your head. The first is the automatic system. This is your gut reaction. It's fast, instinctive, and effortless. It's what makes you duck when a ball is thrown at your head. It's the part of you that smiles at a cute puppy or gets a jolt of anxiety when your plane hits turbulence. This is the ancient, reptilian part of our brain, the part that has been making snap judgments for millions of years to keep us alive. It's Homer Simpson. He feels, he wants, he acts. 5-day waiting period, but I'm mad now. The second is the reflective system. This is your conscious thought. It's slow, deliberate, and takes effort. It's the part of you that you use to solve a math problem, to plan a road trip, or to weigh the pros and cons of going to college. This is the logical, calculating part of our brain. It's Mr. Spock from Star Trek, all logic and reason. In a perfect world, our inner Spock would always be in charge of the important decisions. But the reflective system is lazy. It gets tired easily. And most of the time, our inner Homer is at the wheel, steering us through life based on feelings, habits, and mental shortcuts. And this is where we get into trouble. Because our automatic system, while brilliant at dodging predators on the savannah, is terrible at navigating the modern world of credit cards, retirement plans, and all-you-can-eat buffets. It relies on a set of simple rules of thumb, or what psychologists call heuristics. These rules are usually fast and helpful, but they can also lead to massive, systematic errors. The authors highlight 3 big ones that trip us up constantly. The first is anchoring. Let me ask you a strange question. Take the last 3 digits of your phone number and add 200. Got that number? Okay. Now, when do you think Attila the Hun sacked Rome? Was it before or after that year? Your phone number has absolutely nothing to do with ancient history. But when researchers run this experiment, they find something incredible. People with high phone numbers consistently guess a date that is hundreds of years later than people with low phone numbers. This is anchoring. Our minds don't like a vacuum. When we're asked to estimate something we don't know, we grab onto the first piece of information we're given, the anchor, and we adjust from there. The problem is, we don't adjust nearly enough. This isn't just a fun party trick. It's at work everywhere. When a charity asks for a donation, they don't just say, "Give what you can." They offer options: $50, $100, $250, or other. Those numbers aren't random. They are anchors, designed to make a $100 donation feel reasonable. If the options were $25, $50, and $75, the average donation would be much lower. The more you ask for, the more you tend to get. Real estate agents use this when they show you an overpriced house first, making the next one seem like a bargain. Lawyers suing for damages will throw out an astronomically high number, anchoring the jury's mind to a scale where millions of dollars suddenly seems plausible. Our automatic system gets anchored, and our reflective system is often too lazy to pull up that anchor and start fresh. The second mental shortcut is the availability heuristic. What are you more afraid of? A shark attack or a falling coconut? Shark attacks are terrifying. They're the subject of blockbuster movies. They get massive media coverage. Falling coconuts? Not so much. And yet, falling coconuts kill about 150 people every year. Sharks kill about 5. We judge the likelihood of an event not by the actual statistics, but by how easily we can recall an example of it. This is the availability heuristic. If something is vivid, recent, and emotional, our brain thinks it's common. Homicides are more available in our minds than suicides, so most people wrongly believe that homicides are more frequent. They aren't. This explains why, in the aftermath of an earthquake, sales of earthquake insurance skyrocket. and then steadily decline as the memory fades. It's why we worry more about terrorism than heart disease, even though heart disease is vastly more likely to kill us. Our brains are wired to react to vivid stories, not boring statistics. And this simple bias governs not just our fears, but our decisions, both personal and public. Governments pour resources into fighting the dangers that are on the front page, not necessarily the ones that are the biggest threats. The third big rule of thumb is representativeness. Think of this as the stereotype heuristic. Let me tell you about a woman named Linda. She is 31 years old, single, outspoken, and very bright. She majored in philosophy. As a student, she was deeply concerned with issues of discrimination and social justice, and also participated in anti-nuclear demonstrations. Now, which is more probable? A Linda is a bank teller. B. Linda is a bank teller and is active in the feminist movement. If you're like most people, you chose B. It just feels right. The description of Linda is highly representative of our stereotype of a feminist. But B is a logical impossibility. Think about it. The group of feminist bank tellers is a subgroup of all bank tellers. It's like saying it's more likely to find a golden retriever than it is to find a dog. It's logically impossible for a smaller group to be more probable than the larger group that contains it. Our automatic system, our inner Homer, doesn't care about logic. It cares about what feels similar, what matches our mental picture. The great scientist Stephen Jay Gould said that even though he knew the right answer, a little person in his head was still jumping up and down, shouting, "But she can't just be a bank teller. Read the description." That little person is the automatic system in action. This bias makes us see patterns where there are none. We see a basketball player make 3 shots in a row and we declare he has a hot hand. We get him the ball. But decades of research have shown the hot hand is a myth. A player is no more likely to make their next shot after making 3 in a row than they were before. It's just a random fluctuation that our minds desperately want to turn into a meaningful pattern. The same thing happens with cancer clusters or stock market streaks. We are pattern-seeking machines, even when we're just looking at static. These biases, anchoring, availability, and representativeness, are just the beginning. The authors walk us through a whole gallery of our mental quirks. There's unrealistic optimism. About 90% of drivers think they are above average. Nearly everyone thinks they have an above-average sense of humor. When couples get married, almost all of them believe there is a 0% chance they will get divorced, even though they know the statistic is closer to 50%. This optimism can be good. It's what fuels entrepreneurs to start new businesses, but it also leads us to underestimate risks, from our chances of having a heart attack to our need to save for retirement. Then there's our strange relationship with gains and losses. People hate losing far more than they enjoy winning. Losing something makes you about twice as miserable as gaining the same thing makes you happy. This is called loss aversion. In a classic experiment, half a classroom of students is given a free coffee mug. The other half gets nothing. Then, the students with mugs are asked for the lowest price they'd be willing to sell their mug for. The students without mugs are asked for the highest price they'd be willing to pay for one. Logically, the prices should be about the same. It's the same mug. But they never are. The owners of the mugs typically demand about twice as much to give up their mug as the non-owners are willing to pay to get one. Once it's ours, it suddenly becomes more valuable. We don't want to lose it. This powerful aversion to loss leads to another one of our biggest flaws, the status quo bias. This is just a fancy name for inertia. For a host of reasons, we have a powerful tendency to stick with our current situation. When you get a new cell phone, it comes with a default ringtone, a default wallpaper, and a dozen other settings. How many of those have you changed? Most people stick with the defaults, even when the stakes are much higher than a ringtone. This whatever heuristic is one of the most powerful forces in human behavior. We just go with the flow. We sit in the same seat in class every day. We watch whatever TV show comes on after the one we were just watching. We subscribe to magazines for a decade that we never read, just because we never get around to canceling. And this is where the story pivots. Because if we are all so easily influenced, if our choices are shaped by anchors, by inertia, by the order things are presented in, then there is no such thing as a neutral design. This brings us to the most important character in the book, after the human. This is the choice architect. A choice architect is anyone who organizes the context in which people make decisions. If you design a ballot, you're a choice architect. If you're a doctor describing treatment options to a patient, you're a choice architect. If you're a parent laying out educational paths for your child, you're a choice architect. And if you're in charge of the school cafeteria, you are most definitely a choice architect. The authors tell the story of a fictional friend, Carolyn, who is the director of food services for a large city school system. She decides to run an experiment. Without changing the menus, she simply rearranges how the food is displayed. In some schools, the desserts are first in line. In others, they're last. In some, the French fries are at eye level. In others, it's the carrot sticks. The results are dramatic. Simply by rearranging the food, she can increase or decrease the consumption of many items by as much as 25%. Carolyn has learned a huge lesson. Small, seemingly insignificant details in the environment can have a major impact on people's behavior. She has power. She can nudge. And now she has a choice. What should she do with this power? She could arrange the food to make the students as healthy as possible. She could arrange it randomly. She could try to arrange it to mimic what the kids would have chosen on their own, but what does that even mean, when what they choose depends on the arrangement? She could take bribes from suppliers to feature their products. Or she could arrange it to maximize profits. The first option, arranging the food to make the students better off, seems a little intrusive. A bit paternalistic. But the alternatives are worse. Random is a cop-out. Trying to be neutral is impossible, because any arrangement has an effect. Taking bribes is corrupt. And maximizing profits might make the kids less healthy. So Carolyn is stuck. She must choose some arrangement. She cannot avoid being a choice architect. Any design she chooses will nudge the kids in one direction or another. This is the central argument of the book. Since nudges are unavoidable, why not deliberately design them to make people's lives better? This is what the authors call libertarian paternalism. It sounds like a contradiction, and the authors know it. Both words have a bad reputation. Libertarian brings to mind dogmatic anti-government thinkers. Paternalism brings to mind a nanny state that tells you what to do. But when you break it down, the idea is simple common sense. The libertarian part is the most important. It means preserving freedom of choice. A nudge is not a mandate. Banning junk food is not a nudge. Putting fruit at eye level is a nudge. People should always be free to choose. They should be able to opt out of any arrangement easily and at low cost. If you want to eat the cake, go ahead. We're not going to stop you. The paternalism part is simply the claim that it is legitimate for choice architects to try to influence people's behavior in a way that will make their lives longer, healthier, and better, as judged by themselves. We're not trying to impose some bureaucrat's values on you. We're trying to help your inner, long-term planner, your inner Spock, win out over your impulsive, short-term door, your inner Homer. We're trying to help you achieve the goals you yourself have set. So, a nudge, as the authors define it, is any aspect of the choice architecture that alters people's behavior in a predictable way without forbidding any options or significantly changing their economic incentives. It's the fly in the urinal. It's the stripes on the road on a dangerous curve that get closer together, creating the illusion of speed and making you instinctively slow down. It's the automatic renewal of a magazine subscription. The rest of the book is a grand tour of how this simple, powerful idea can be applied to some of the biggest problems we face, in health, wealth, and happiness. Let's start with wealth, specifically saving for retirement. This is a perfect storm of difficulty for us humans. The benefits are far in the future. It requires solving a complex math problem. And it demands immense self-control to resist the temptation of spending money now. It's no surprise that many people fail at it. In the United States, personal savings rates have been tragically low. Even when companies offer fantastic retirement plans, like a 401k where they will match your contributions, literally offering you free money, a huge percentage of employees don't sign up. They get the forms, they know they should do it, but inertia kicks in. The forms sit on the kitchen counter, and they never get around to it. The old system was an opt-in system. The default was non-enrollment. You had to take action to join. So, a libertarian paternalist asks, what if we just flip the default? This is what many companies have started to do, with a program called automatic enrollment. When you're hired, you're automatically enrolled in the retirement plan unless you actively take steps to opt out. The results have been astonishing. In one company, participation rates for new employees jumped from around 20% to 90%, almost overnight. Just by changing the default, by harnessing the power of inertia for good, millions of people will have a more comfortable retirement. It's a simple, powerful nudge. But there's a problem. With automatic enrollment, people are enrolled at a default savings rate, which is usually quite low, maybe 3% of their income. And because of the status quo bias, most people just stick with that low rate forever. They're saving, but not enough. This is where Richard Thaler, along with his colleague Shlomo Benartzi, came up with an even more brilliant nudge, a program called Save More Tomorrow. This program is designed with a deep understanding of human psychology. First, it acknowledges that people want to save more, but have self-control problems. Second, it uses the fact that it's always easier to commit to doing something good in the future than to start today. I'll start my diet on Monday. Third, it cleverly sidesteps loss aversion. People hate seeing their paycheck go down. Here's how it works. You ask employees if they would like to join a program where they commit, in advance, to increasing their savings rate automatically every time they get a pay raise. Think about the genius of this. Your take-home pay never goes down. When you get a 3% raise, maybe 1% of that automatically goes into your retirement savings. You still see your paycheck go up, just by a little less. You don't feel the loss of the extra savings. And once you're in, inertia becomes your best friend. The increases happen automatically. You don't have to do anything. The first test of this program was a spectacular success. A group of employees who had just refused to increase their savings immediately were offered Save More Tomorrow. Nearly 80% of them signed up. Over the next few years, their savings rates nearly quadrupled, from 3.5% to 13.6%. They went from being poor savers to excellent savers, and they barely felt a thing. This idea has been so successful that it was written into U.S. law in 2006, creating incentives for companies to adopt both automatic enrollment and automatic escalation. It is a perfect example of a gentle nudge that will help millions of people have a better life, without forcing anyone to do anything. Now let's turn to health. The same principles apply. One of the most powerful and tragic examples is organ donation. In the United States, thousands of people die every year while waiting for an organ transplant. The demand far outstrips the supply. And yet, surveys show that the vast majority of people approve of organ donation and say they would be willing to be donors. The problem, again, is the gap between intention and action. Most states use an explicit consent system, or an opt-in model. You have to take a concrete step, like checking a box on your driver's license, to become a donor. And many of us, for no good reason, just don't get around to it. But some countries use a different system. They use a system of presumed consent, or an opt-out model. In these countries, everyone is presumed to be an organ donor unless they take an active step to opt out. The difference this makes is staggering. Look at two similar countries, Germany and Austria. Germany uses an opt-in system. Only 12% of its citizens are registered donors. Austria, right next door, uses an opt-out system. Their donation rate? Nearly 100%. 99%. This isn't because Austrians are more generous than Germans. It's because of the power of the default. When the default is set to the socially beneficial outcome, inertia and the status quo bias do the rest. Switching the default rule here would not cost taxpayers a dime, it would not force anyone to do anything they don't want to do, and it would save thousands of lives every single year. It's a nudge that could be the difference between life and death. Of course, not all nudges are designed so well. The authors point to the Medicare prescription drug plan, known as Part D, as a case study in terrible choice architecture. The plan was created with the libertarian idea of maximizing choice. In some states, senior citizens were faced with choosing from over 50 different, highly complex prescription drug plans. The result was chaos and confusion. Faced with a bewildering array of options, many people either failed to enroll or made poor choices. The situation was so bad that for millions of low-income seniors who didn't choose a plan, the government's solution was to enroll them randomly. This is the exact opposite of an intelligent nudge. It's like Carol and the cafeteria manager deciding to just throw the food on the floor and let the kids figure it out. The lesson is clear: just maximizing choices is not enough. Especially when the choices are complex and the stakes are high, a good choice architect needs to provide structure, guidance, and sensible defaults. More choice is not always better. Better choice architecture is better. The authors propose a simple fix called recap, record, evaluate, and compare alternative prices. The idea is that providers of complex services, like cell phone plans, credit cards, mortgages, and prescription drug plans, should be required to provide customers with a clear, machine-readable summary of their usage and all the fees they've paid. This would allow third-party websites to easily compare plans and tell you, based on your own history, which plan would have been cheapest for you. It's a nudge that uses transparency and technology to empower consumers and foster real competition. The power of a nudge also extends beyond our personal decisions into our collective behavior, especially when it comes to saving the planet. Environmental problems are often a tragedy of the commons, where everyone acting in their own self-interest leads to a collective disaster. We don't see the immediate cost of leaving the lights on or driving a gas-guzzling car. The feedback is poor, and the incentives are misaligned. The authors argue that the best solutions are based on incentives, like a carbon tax or a cap-and-trade system that makes polluters pay. These are more like shoves than nudges, but they are liberty-preserving shoves. They make the costs of pollution visible and let people and companies decide for themselves how to respond. But even without these big policy changes, smaller nudges can make a huge difference. Remember the social influence principle? We are heavily influenced by what others are doing. In Texas, officials were struggling with a massive littering problem. Their ad campaigns about civic duty weren't working. So they tried a new tactic. They hired famous, tough guy Dallas Cowboys football players to star in commercials where they growled the new slogan, "Don't mess with Texas." The campaign was a massive success. It didn't just tell people not to litter, it created a new social norm. It framed littering as something that was not just wrong, but weak and un-Texan. Litter was reduced by over 70% in its first few years. This was a social nudge. In California, a study on energy conservation gave households information not just about their own energy use, but also about how their use compared to their neighbors. The result? The above-average users significantly cut back their consumption. But there was a boomerang effect. The below-average users actually increased their energy use, as if they felt they had room to spare. So the researchers added another nudge. For the big energy users, they put a sad emoticon on their bill. For the energy savers, they put a happy emoticon. The result? The sad face made the big users cut back even more. And the happy face completely eliminated the boomerang effect. The little bit of social approval was enough to keep the good savers on track. It's a simple, low-cost intervention that harnesses the power of social comparison and feedback. Imagine if your thermostat didn't just show the temperature, but glowed red when you were using a lot of expensive energy, and green when you were being efficient. Suddenly, the invisible becomes visible. And when we can see our choices, we can start to change them. Throughout this journey, the authors build a powerful case that we can do better. We can design systems, in our governments, our companies, and our own lives, that make it easier for our better selves to emerge. The principles of a good choice architect can be summarized with a helpful acronym: nudges. I. Incentives. Who pays? Who chooses? Who profits? Make sure the incentives are aligned. If you want people to do something, make it worth their while. But also, make sure the incentives are salient, that people can see them. Understand mappings. How do we map our choices to our welfare? The Medicare Part D program fails this test because it's nearly impossible for a senior to map the choice of a plan to their actual out-of-pocket costs and health outcomes. A good choice architect makes the consequences of a choice clear. Instead of telling you a camera has 12 megapixels, tell you it can produce high-quality poster-sized prints. Translate choices into experiences. Defaults. This is the big one. The power of inertia is immense. Defaults should be chosen with care, to reflect the choice that would make most people better off. Automatic enrollment, presumed consent for organ donation, these are powerful, life-changing defaults. Give feedback. The best way to improve is to get clear, immediate feedback. Digital cameras are better than film cameras because you can see your mistakes right away. The glowing orb that shows your energy use provides instant feedback. A well-designed system tells you when you're doing well and when you're making an error. Expect error. Humans make mistakes. A well-designed system anticipates these errors and is as forgiving as possible. A gas cap that's attached to the car prevents you from driving off without it. An email program that asks, "Did you mean to send this without an attachment?" is expecting error. We should design for humans, not for econs. Structure complex choices. When choices are numerous and complex, we need help. People use simplifying strategies, and choice architects can help. A paint store organizes colors by hue, not alphabetically. A movie rental site uses collaborative filtering, people who like this also liked, to help you navigate a sea of options. When the world is complex, a little structure goes a long way. This framework isn't a magic wand. It doesn't solve all our problems. But it offers a new way of thinking. It's a third way between the rigid, one-size-fits-all mandates of old-school government and the dogmatic, sink-or-swim approach of pure laissez-faire. It recognizes that we are human. It respects our freedom. And it gently, wisely, nudges us toward a better world. Commentary. As we close the pages of Nudge, it's hard not to look at the world a little differently. Suddenly, you start seeing the hidden architecture everywhere. The layout of the grocery store, the design of a website, the way your doctor presents your options, it's all choice architecture. And you realize that you're being nudged, all the time, whether you know it or not. The most profound lesson from this book isn't just about policy or economics. It's a deeply compassionate and humble observation about the human condition. It reminds us that being smart doesn't make us immune to making foolish mistakes. Our best intentions are often derailed by the simplest of obstacles, a poorly designed form, a moment of temptation, or just the powerful pull of doing nothing at all. What Thaler and Sunstein offer is not a grand, sweeping ideology, but a practical, humane philosophy. They don't pretend to have all the answers. Instead, they give us a new lens through which to see problems and a new toolkit for solving them. It's a toolkit based on empathy, on understanding our own predictable quirks and designing systems that account for them. This idea of libertarian paternalism is, I believe, one of the most important political and social ideas of the 21st century. It offers a path out of the tired, polarized debates that so often trap us. It shows that we can be both pro-choice and pro-well-being. We can help people without taking away their freedom. We can be smarter about how we structure society without becoming a nanny state. So, how can you start using this today? You don't have to be a president or a CEO to be a choice architect. First, you can be the choice architect of your own life. Recognize your inner Homer and your inner Spock. Know that your willpower is a limited resource. Instead of relying on it, change your environment. If you want to eat healthier, don't just try to resist the junk food in your pantry, get it out of your house. Make healthy snacks the easy, default option. If you want to exercise in the morning, lay out your workout clothes the night before. Reduce the friction. Make good choices the path of least resistance. Second, you can be a choice architect for the people you care about. If you want your kids to do their homework, don't just nag them. Help them design an environment with fewer distractions. If you're a manager and you want your team to save for retirement, don't just send them a memo. Make the enrollment process as simple as possible. Make it automatic. And finally, you can demand better choice architecture from the institutions that serve you. Ask why the forms are so complicated. Ask why the defaults aren't set to help you. The power of a nudge is that it is often simple, low-cost, and easy to implement. We just have to start seeing the opportunities. That was a summary of Nudge by Richard H. Thaler and Cass R. Sunstein. We've explored the main ideas today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary is like looking at a travel brochure. It can show you the pictures, but it can't give you the feeling of actually being there. The real magic of this book is in the delightful stories, the clever experiments, and the sheer humanity that shines through on every page. This summary is designed to help you decide if this book is worth your time. If anything we've talked about today has sparked your curiosity, if you found yourself thinking, "That's so true, I do that," then I urge you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see the world and your own place within it. Also, if you found this summary valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe. It tells us we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book. Let's keep learning and keep growing together.